Well, that sounds like a little more than just grunge music.
Yes.
So, again, it's a case-by-case basis. I can't generalize and say that all people interested in music, are engaged in the occult or these darker things. A lot of the bands that are very satanic on the surface, much more than what you described, like in the lyrics and how they dress and the shows they put on, they'll often say the same thing, that they're not satanic, that they're more atheists, and they're expressing that rebellion against the dominant religion in Western civilization. But I don't really buy it, because when you look at what they do, it's so negative. It's not just saying, we want to rebel and be young and kind of have that spirit of rebellion as we individuate from our parents or something. It becomes very perverse. So the example you gave there, I think, is in that arena where that would be considered perverse and very strange and demeaning to the audience in any type of music. So I have encountered cases where people got into very dark musical bands through an actual satanic pact, but that was in a band that is, more openly satanic, and this person came for exorcisms later in their life after the ride was over. It didn't end well for them. I think that's the vast minority, though. I think most kids just get into music because they get into music and it seems fun and exciting and rebellious. When these bands drift into more of the darker occult practices, like privately, I think the best thing you can do is pray for them that they receive the grace to hit the brakes before they go too far. I have a friend who is in one of the, who I met. He was in one of the bands that was very big in the beginning of the Gothic music kind of trend. And he told a similar story where it wasn't really overtly satanic, but they had a moment where they decided to do a ceremony privately, and he pulled out. Something in him told him not to do it, and he didn't take that step and avoided more serious problems. So I've seen both. I've seen people that have literally sold their soul for something related to music, but I think that's the vast minority. I don't think you have to worry about that. Most people are not that engaged in the occult. Most of them, it's a misguided thing. I think what you're describing there is somewhere in the middle. I think it's degrading to people, and it's an attack on people spiritually and physically. So I'd be concerned that it doesn't go any further. I would pray for them as the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything where they took any kind of pact, but so much of what they do in this stage, I discovered you can find out a lot on the internet. Upside-down crosses, pig heads, just they'll take something like the Virgin Mary and they'll turn it into something disgusting and evil. So, and they'll even say, we're calling out the spirits, things like that. But then she'll turn around and say, well, that's just for show.
Mm-hmm.
All right, to Angie, any comment on that? Adam, we got a break coming up in 60 seconds. Any last thoughts from you, Adam, for Angie?
Well, again, pray for her, have masses offered for her to receive the grace, to realize more clearly what's going on, I think is the best thing you can do now that she's an adult.
All right, Angie, thank you so much for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We've got Marianne and Christine and others, and we'll have an open phone line right now. Adam Blai is with us today. He's a religious demonologist. He works for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and he gets called by other dioceses around the country to help investigate spiritual demonic cases. And we have him on the program today talking about parenting in a demonic culture. If you've got any questions, concerns, comments about maybe your kids, things that they're getting into, or just the trends in our culture, 1-800-585-9396.
Hello, I'm Doug Keck, host of EWTN's Bookmark. I wanted to mention a new book that I wanted you to check out in time for the Jubilee of Mercy. It's A Holy Year in Rome, the complete pilgrim's guide for the Jubilee of Mercy by our one and only Rome correspondent, Joan Lewis of Joan's Rome. And in this book, Joan takes you back in time for a look at the history of Jubilees and then brings you up to the present with a visit to the 7 pilgrim basilicas of Rome, 4 of which must be visited by pilgrims to obtain a Holy Year indulgence. You'll discover the treasures of Rome and the Vatican, and you'll learn all about the many interesting facts, such as the difference between a church, a basilica, the significance of the holy doors, architecture, liturgical customs, and much, much more, as only Joan can bring them to life. Available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. It's a Holy Year in Rome, the complete Pilgrim's Guide to the Jubilee of Mercy by the one and only Joan Lewis. Check it out.
I'm Raymond Arroyo with Mother Angelica, A Remarkable Life. In the year 1943, when Mother Angelica was 20 years old, she had been healed of a stomach ailment and began to undertake the pious practice of praying the Stations of the Cross. She would do so right here at St. Anthony's Church every day after work. Following the Stations, she retired to a side altar, knelt down, and said a prayer of thanksgiving before a statue of Our Lady of Sorrows, much like the one behind me. It was here where she would receive her vocation and her call to the religious life. Stay with EWTN as we continue to celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Mary Angelica.
Thanks for being with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We've got Adam Blai with us. He's a religious demonologist out of the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and we are going to go straight back to your calls. If you want to jump in when a line is open, please call in at 1-800-585-9396. The topic is parenting in a demonic culture. We are going to go right to Christine, listening to EWTN Radio in North Iowa on iHeartRadio app. Hi, Christine. Thanks so much for waiting, and welcome to Take Two.
Hi. I just had a quick question. My daughter said that she'd been playing something called Charlie at school, and I didn't think anything of it until you mentioned it when you were talking about the show. So I was wondering if you could tell me what it is.
Sure. So the Charlie thing, it's essentially a parlor trick. So what they do is they lay one pencil or pen down, then they balance another one at 90-degree angle to that on top of it. So it's very delicately balanced. And they'll write things like yes, no, maybe, or whatever in the 4 quadrants of paper underneath that. And then they'll ask a question, and then because the pencil or pen is delicately balanced, the breath from them talking as they're looking at it will hit it a few seconds later, and it'll swing and it'll move. And they'll say, okay, if the point points to yes, the answer's yes and no, etc. So, this is a common game that kids have been playing for a few months now, and there's a lot of videos and then some news stories that may or may not be real about kids having bad reactions to this. So most of the time, of course, this is just kids scaring themselves and not understanding that their breath is moving the pencil. But probably in some rare cases where there's already a pre-existing kind of attachment or problem with the spirit, this could lead to some spiritual problem. I do not think that this could lead to possession. I don't think you need to worry about that because that requires a much more explicit and deep commitment of the person. And also these kids are still under their parents' spiritual authority to the most part, though they're of the age of reason. So I think at worst, you could have something start a relationship and try to communicate maybe later in another way or some manifestation around the person. But even that, I think, is unlikely. This is more just kids scaring themselves. But the danger is it shows a fascination in the child's mind for spirit communication. It's an invitation. It's saying, I'm interested in whatever this spirit is and I want it to manifest. I'm giving permission for this to happen around me. And I'm seeking this relationship. And so not everybody's going to be of interest to these spirits. People play with Ouija boards every day, tens of thousands of times, and nothing happens. but a few of them bad things do happen. So Charlie Charlie is essentially a game and a parlor trick, but it's an invitation. And so it's something that should be avoided when we understand that it's a violation of the first commandment and an invitation.
Does that help, Christine?
Immensely, yes.
Okay. Very good.
So I was just wondering. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Christine, for the call. Glad we were, and I'm sure that answer was helpful to many other people as well. 1-800-585-9396. Are you a mom? Are you a dad? Even grandparents? Talking today about parenting in a demonic culture with Adam Blai, religious demonologist in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. And again, he has got tremendous resources we encourage you to equip yourself with. Just log on to, there's a link at take2show.com or at thirdmillenniummedia.com. You will find the link there. Arm yourself, because parents, you need to know this stuff. You really do, because you can't be with your kids 24 hours a day. So, Marianne, we're going to go to you next, listening to EWTN Radio on Emmanuel Radio in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Adam, a fellow Pittsburgher.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much. Your vocation is so needed. Your passion is needed. I have 2 adult children. One who is totally involved with yoga and just refuses to believe anything might be difficult with that particular practice. I live in a parish where Reiki has been, not in the parish, in the community, Reiki is absolutely accepted. And I'm laughed at. I'm laughed at when I give them the information, maybe from Noonan or whoever on it. I don't talk much about it, but we know how dangerous it is. Here's my question. Number one, you mentioned having masses said, and I think that's absolutely necessary, especially for people that you're not reaching. What about the use of blessed salt or water or ideas remotely how we can break through some of these headsets and these individual people to get them to understand that we're dealing with the occult?
Well, sacramentals are always good, but you also can't go up to somebody that you don't know and throw holy water on them, right? I'm saying that in a funny way, but sacramentals are always a good thing. I think the most powerful thing when it comes to these practices that have been partially adopted from other cultures, because the issues with yoga and Reiki, I think, are that the Western world hasn't been told the whole story in most cases. So people can go on YouTube and type in Kundalini Yoga and find out about this serpent spirit at the base of the spine that they're seeking to awaken, to move up the spine and reach the head and cause involuntary body movements and animal-like vocalizations. So, yoga is a worship practice. The postures are worship postures, and you're supposed to intone the name of a deity when you do it. But in the West, it's been stripped of all those things so that it's palatable and not scary. Reiki, similar thing, the higher levels of it in Japan, where it came from, acknowledge that it's a spirit doing these effects, and that occult powers like astral projection and other favors these spirits can do after you've been anointed by a Reiki master through laying on of hands is kind of the goal at the advanced level. But in the West, they call it this kind of benign, healing through spiritual energy. So basically, the most powerful thing I think you can do is educate the people on the full story of these practices so that they can be more informed. Personally, I've seen a number of cases come out of Reiki from people that have practiced it for quite a bit of time, years. They had good intentions, but as they got in deeper, eventually it dominated them and it ceased being a friendly spirit. So I've seen real cases come out of that. But I think education and praying for them are the 2 things you can do.
Marianne, does that help?
That helps. It helps a great deal. Again, he's so needed. I'm going to see what I can do about getting him here in our area. Do you travel at him?
Sometimes, yes.
You're so needed up here. See, it's almost been approved by, I know in Boston, yoga was considered, it's okay. The bishop, I read the bishop saying, it's okay. There's nothing serious about it. We we need education of our ministers as well.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to cause division or controversy. I think the USCCB has not made a formal statement on yoga yet. At least I haven't heard about one. So I'm not trying to go against any bishops that have said this is okay. I'm just trying to point out that the more advanced forms of it that usually are not talked about or practiced here are the fuller part of that system. So if your intention is got nothing to do with awakening these serpent spirits in your body and all of that, then the culpability is lower and you're probably not going to have problems from it. But if you get involved in the esoteric end of things and it becomes more of an occult practice, seeking special powers, then I think it's more dangerous.
Marianne, also, too, if you want to go to thirdmillenniummedia.com, you can read about Adam and see if it works for your area to possibly bring him out with schedules permitting. So thirdmillenniummedia.com, you can find out more information. Thanks, Marianne. Thank you so much for the phone call. We appreciate it. Thanks for raising awareness for all of us. It's good. It's good for us to learn and grow. We're going to move right along, Adam, if that's okay with you, to Jim. Listening to EWTN Radio in Atlanta, Georgia on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for waiting. Welcome to Take Two.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks, Adam, for everything you do. I did hear your hour-long talk on YouTube. I think it was very well done. My question is, I don't have any children. I'm not married, but I have a couple nieces that are involved in homosexual lifestyle, so-called marriages. And my question is just general for Adam. Can that tend to lead into further exposure to the occult or things like that? We've not seen anything there, but they're very, very, very set in their mindset on this lifestyle and everything that goes with it, including anti-Catholicism. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, that's a tough one, of course. I don't think it necessarily intersects with the occult. No, I think a lot of times it's just a cultural kind of thing, and something that people choose to engage in. A lot of people feel that that's just their inclination, and that they're following that. I'm not really going to weigh in and make judgments one way or the other because I just don't feel qualified to. It's not my area of expertise. That being said, I am aware that there are within some of these communities a vein of occult practices, and some of it rises out of the feeling that a lot of people have in the homosexual communities that they're rejected by God and not loved by God. And so some people that promote kind of a satanic approach, kind of the essential message that's used to hook people is, well, God doesn't love you, it's very clear, but the devil does. And so you might as well worship him because he's going to be your friend, and God clearly doesn't like you. And so this is kind of a very damaging and hurtful way to draw people into that, because some people are made to feel alienated from God by the people that promote this kind of extreme idea. Now, that's a very small minority. It's a vein within some of these communities, and it's not everybody by far. And most people would be unaware that that's going on within some communities. But it's an example of how the feelings and the hurt feelings can be taken advantage of.
Thank you very much, and God bless you in your work, Adam, and thank you guys for all you do. Appreciate it.
Oh, God bless you, too.
Thanks, Jim in Atlanta. 800-585-9396. As a line is freed up, it just gets taken by somebody else, because this is a very, I think, important conversation that we're having, and one that really it should be of concern to anyone who's a parent or a grandparent, or even those of us who have nephews, nieces, and just love and care for the souls of young people. We're talking about parenting in a demonic culture. Again, you'll find Adam's products at thirdmillenniummedia.com, or there's a link to that site at take2show.com. Dave next in Buffalo, listening to EWTN on the Station of the Cross. Dave, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and Adam Blai. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
I think the caller earlier kind of talked about some things having to do with sacramentals. I do remember a story of a woman who had a son who was 17, and he was, playing all these violent games on the video and computer, with blood and stuff. And she didn't like it, but she didn't want to say no because he was almost 18. But then she started sprinkling his computer with holy water. And about 2 weeks later, he said, "Ma, you're right. This is ridiculous. And why is there water on my computer?" And I'm just, kind of wondering, is there, you did mention that, you can't really, use sacramentals on other people, but why not, mention some other things that might be helpful, other than maybe just holy water, to kind of, have a preemptive strike against any kind of stuff that might be going on in your house and you're not even aware of it?
Well, in that case, with a parent or a relative, I'd be careful. I'm not saying you can't use sacramentals with people. What I was trying to say earlier was you wouldn't want to go up to a stranger who's promoting some idea you don't agree with or doing something you don't like and start throwing holy water on them. They have free will, and their spiritual and behavior choices are between them and God, and it's not our place to go and start dictating and throwing holy water on people. That's what I was saying. In the case of a parent and a child, I wouldn't be afraid to use it, but just use it along with prayer and talking with them. So in that case, it's an interesting example that you give. What we watch on TV or watch on the computer certainly affects our behavior. This has been known since the early psychology days. You can look up the Bobo doll study. It's a black and white video where they showed kindergarten kids images of kids playing violently with a toy or playing lovingly with a toy. And then they watched what those two groups did in their play, and the kids who saw violence played in a violent way. So we've known this for a long time. It's certainly going to affect a person. It's going to normalize violence for the person and all of that. And then the counter-argument is it's a way to vent those aggressive tendencies in a way that isn't actually destructive. So there's different arguments. I think, again, it comes back to praying for the person and education. So it's going to be a tough sell to tell kids not to play violent video games because there's just millions of people playing them. They're designed to be attractive and engaging and all of that. I think focusing on maybe even pointing people to the psychological studies that have shown that this impacts people and can contribute to violence might help some people. But generally, I think praying for them is the best thing you can do. The holy water on the computer, sure, it may work. It's up to God. The action of sacramentals is up to God. So I would say, I would lean towards praying for the person and having a talk with them. More than that, maybe on the practical sense of throwing water on electronics may not be the smartest thing. Depending on how much you use, you might cause a fire. So you have to be practical too.
Right.
Dave, does that work?
Yeah, one other question. I just wanted to know about, maybe this might not be directly related to kids, but I've gone to physical therapy, and I've asked physical therapists. One said, do you know anything about Reiki? She says, I'm a Reiki master. I says, well, I really don't want you doing any physical work on me. Just show me what the activity is, and I'll just do it. I don't really want you working on me, and so, but I have had some physical therapists who I knew, because I felt some kind of weird energy, and I just thought, if someone is working on you, because I used to have people do Christian massage, and this one woman actually did Reiki, and I didn't know it was wrong 25 years ago. I know it is now, but is there any way you can detox yourself from that kind of stuff if you think that there might have been some kind of stuff passed on from someone who was involved in Reiki?
Yeah, confession is your most powerful tool. So if you become informed that something may have been an invitation to any kind of problem, just take it to confession and say, Father, I wasn't really aware of this, but maybe there was a problem there, and I want to repent of this, and I want God to take away any kind of fallout from that choice. The act of allowing somebody to touch you and do spiritual work, blessings, prayers, what they think is spiritual healing, any of it, when you allow that and that's what they're doing, you are consenting to share whatever spiritual baggage that person has. And we've seen many cases that have illustrated this, and that's why it's so important, I think, to have a priest bless you. Parents can bless their children, but if you're meeting a stranger, you want to be, I would say cautious about who you allow to lay hands on you and pray or bless, because if it's a stranger, you don't know what their intent are or what their background is. Now, if you didn't know the person was going to do Reiki, the culpability really isn't there. You weren't consenting to the spiritual work. I would still take it to confession just to be safe. Don't be fearful. If you've had a massage therapist and now you're worried about it, just check in with them the next time you get a massage maybe and make sure they're not, trying to do spiritual work on you. And when in doubt, take it to confession.
I'm glad you shared that, Adam, about confession being the remedy for it. That really does, I think, bring comfort to all of us who maybe unknowingly just walked ourselves into something thinking that it was okay, it was safe, it was good, and really it wasn't once now that we've been made aware of it. So thanks, Dave, for the call from Buffalo, New York. We appreciate it. Keep listening on the Station of the Cross. We love the folks of Station of the Cross. We're going to move right along to Blanca in Miami, Florida, listening to EWTN radio on the EWTN app. Hi, Blanca. Welcome to Take Two.
Hello. I have a question for your guest. There is this show in cable TV about a lady that talks to the dead people. And people usually go pay her and asking people bringing kids because they want to connect with the relatives that had died. And I started watching the show. I started feeling comfortable, even though she proclaims she's a practicing Catholic. She started talking about, the dog is in heaven too, and all kind of things. So, what is the position about the Catholic Church about all this? And I didn't like it anymore. I stopped watching it, and it was very sometimes impressive. But we know that. Satan is the father of lies. He will tell you even truth, and you will believe on that. So I just wanted to know what do you think about it?
Yep. So with psychics and mediums, when you go to them, again, it's a first commandment issue. You're telling God, I don't trust you. I don't trust your teaching about the afterlife. I don't trust you to comfort me in my grief. I don't trust the church's sacraments. I don't trust all of these mechanisms of grace and comfort. I want to go to this person with magic powers to give me comfort right now on my terms. And so you're rejecting God and you're entering into a submission to somebody that you're holding up as an idol, or as, a little god, so to speak, or to whatever spirit they claim they're serving. You're saying, I'm going to serve that spirit and give it deference as opposed to trusting God. And again, scripturally, there's a prohibition in the Old Testament, very strong, that God says, I'll cut you off from my people and turn my face away from you if you engage in necromancy, calling up the dead and talking to them. So what kind of spirit, if there's any spirit there, if it's not just a sham, is going to help that psychic? Well, it's not going to be a holy angel drawing you into a sin of breaking the first commandment. It's not going to be a saint in heaven drawing you into sin. It's not going to be a soul in purgatory trying to make it to God drawing you into sin. So it's either going to be a damned soul or a demon. And they're going to pretend to be your relative or your loved one, and they're going to give you information that seems amazing, because they watch us during our lives, because it's their job to tempt us. We don't have to be fearful about that. It's just that's their job. So these things, they're very serious. And the other big red flag about them, besides all those spiritual issues, is ethically, it's very concerning. These people are preying on people that are grieving and then asking for large sums of money for very short periods of time, and then usually, if the person has a lot of money to be made there, says, and I can help you with these other spiritual problems later, but you'll have to bring more money. And there's people that get entangled in this, and they end up spending thousands of dollars. I think I think ethically and socially, there's a lot of issues there too. And CNN just did a big multi-month, huge story researching one of the international kind of scams that has been preying on older people for decades and made millions upon millions of dollars. So there's a whole bunch of layers here, but I don't think in any way you could claim that's a Catholic practice.
All right, Blanca, I hope that helps. We're just short on time here, and I knew today would be busy on the phones. Sincerest apologies, Dina, Lewis, and Ben, and others. I wish we had another hour to go on. I wish we had several hours for material like this because it is so important. Adam, before we let you go, we mentioned, and you mentioned, schedule permitting. I know you're very, very busy. You don't have a lot of time to go out and speak, but you are open to speaking opportunities if the Lord leads you to those, and of course if it fits in with your employment situation there at the Diocese of Pittsburgh, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And we mentioned you were a speaker at the One Faith Experience. We have put an opportunity for our listeners to get your products. Just real quickly, I think the ones that I mentioned in about 30 seconds, Adam, the Prevention and Self-Help and the Parenting in a Demonic Culture 2 video DVD, I think that one would be very helpful for people.
Well, I hope so, Jerry. Really, all I'm doing is trying to, I think, educate the public as part of my life. I think that's part of what God wants me to be doing, and I'm trying to share things that I've learned through actual experience with real cases and kind of distill them out into hopefully useful either education or remedy,
Right.
what people can do to get out of problems that they might be in.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for being on. We hope to have you on again. thirdmillenniummedia.com. That's where you can find more information and Adam's DVDs and CDs. Stay tuned in on EWTN all day long at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Barbara McWiggin's on for a pro-life forum. That's going to be awesome. Jerry?
Yeah, Adam, thank you so much for your time with us here today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. More great shows coming your way, as Debbie said, all day today. And then tomorrow, another great Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're going to be talking about That Was Then, This Is Now. How are you better than you were earlier in your life? Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day.